Okay, so we got a few more tech things set up here and get ready. Just as a reminder, we had a collection for Pastor Josh earlier. There is a basket over here for those who wish to make a donation, specifically to the Welcome Project or to SAGA. If you are making out a check, please make it out to St. Paul's UCC, and just note in the bottom, SAGA or the Welcome Project, either one. And we will collect everything, tally it up, of course, and send one check to him and to the Welcome Project. It'll also show up on your giving record that way if you care. And I say that both for the sake of those who are here, as well as those who watch this recording later in the week. And that is your reminder that this session is being recorded. The camera, if you don't wish to be on the camera is pretty well aimed at Josh, so you'll also get a little view of folks over here. And of course, if you don't want your questions recorded, you may want to ask Josh or see if we can do it after we've stopped the actual session. Okay, good. All right, thanks.
So we should behave ourselves?
No. Why start now?
Yeah, I mean, you don't have that expectation from me, right? So, thank you everybody for sticking around. I know you've got nice weather finally and all that today, so thanks for sticking around. This is a dialogue, so I don't want this to be like me giving a PowerPoint presentation. Boring. And there's a lot going on at the moment, according to that shirt. I agree, there's a lot going on in this moment. So I encourage you to please ask questions, interact with me, because this is really for you, and I hope it can be a time for us to learn from each other. I'm going to show you at some point a short documentary film that reflects some of the story of how the Welcome Project came to be out of Love and Action UCC, and I think that gives you a really good idea of one of our major stories and what happens when you open your doors to the community. But I want to start, as I often do, with questions. I'm a question person. I think beautiful questions lead to beautiful things. So these are the questions. This list right here is the official list. Back in I don't know, 2013 or so, when we had just become open and affirming 2 years ago, we were going to sell the building. There was a lot going on. It was chaotic. It was difficult. You can probably imagine selling a church building is like, I don't know, it's just hard to explain what that feels like, right? So there was a lot of emotion around that, good and bad in between. It just was really hard. So we'd gotten to the end of that. We were wandering around the desert, as they say in theological terms. We didn't have a space to worship. We were renting a community center for about a year, maybe 3 months or so, until we find our spot where we are currently located in Montgomery County. But these were the questions that we posed to each other. You know, who do we want to serve or empower in the community? What do we need to let go of? That's a hard one. What's the first step? See, that's when we ignore. A lot of times we want to just like you've been a year open and affirming, and honestly, I hope that if you walk away from this today with anything, please understand that's like day one, the first year. So don't be hard on yourself if you feel like you're not doing anything, because when you become open and affirming, that's an identity piece. That's a culture piece, right? You're participating internally in culture change. And that's what you're still doing right now. And that's actually some of the most beautiful parts of this work. What are we afraid of? That was a big one for us because, again, we were terrified, not all of us, but many of us were terrified about selling the building, because when you do that, you can't take it back, right? So that was terrifying. We were also, myself included, as a pastor, there's no pastor, and Pastor Mark would agree with me, that loves it when people leave a church unless it's really healthy, right? And that happens too. And when I said that we had a quarter of the congregation leave after we voted to, well, right before the open and affirming vote, I want to go deeper there. I want to say that the majority of the quarter of the congregation that left on good terms, meaning that these were families and individuals who weren't ready to go there. Okay? For whatever reason. They loved their church. They were trying their best, but they just knew that they couldn't do it. And the current rendition of what UCC Warminster and eventually Love in Action was to be was something they just couldn't do yet. But the majority of them were in that state, right? There were, and I don't hide this, there were families and a few couples or folks who didn't leave on good terms, and we're all sad about it. And as a pastor, it's one of the saddest things, because you want people to understand how much loving other people can also be loving yourself. It's a reciprocal thing. We know that in the Christian faith, but it didn't happen to them. So I just wanted to qualify that, because as we asked that, what are we afraid of? Well, we were afraid of losing people, right? Because we're small. We're very small. I don't know what your membership is, but before we sold the building, we were only, reality, we were only about 75 members. Now on the books it was over 100, but I didn't see those people. I even tried to visit them, they didn't want to get visited. So 75 people, all right. And today, you know, I would say what I appreciate about the United Church of Christ now, wasn't always this way. Now when we do our annual reporting, there's a lot more room now to talk about ministry rather than just membership, right?
Absolutely.
Pastor Mark knows what I'm talking about. So now I can actually say what our impact and our reach is, because the community we serve is over 2,000 people. But our church membership is still the same as it always has been, right? About 70, 75 people, but they're active people, right? So the people that are on the board of directors, we have a memorandum of understanding between the Welcome Project PA and Love in Action UCC, which states that there must always be a certain number of members of the board of directors of the Welcome Project who are members of Love in Action UCC. We obviously share a building space. We have a memorandum of understanding about that, who pays for what, who gets to use what, and it's all under this umbrella of the mission of both of our organizations, right? So that's actually been a lot easier than I thought. I was afraid of that. Going back to that question, I was kind of thinking, how is this going to work? Because I talked to as many people as I could who would listen and give me answers about who's done this, who's had a congregation, and then flipped it to the community center, and not say the congregation died, because it didn't die. The congregation just was a caterpillar and now it's a butterfly, right? So the Welcome Project PA is still Love in Action. It's just butterfly form. I was afraid of that because I didn't know if that would work. I really didn't. But that was actually not as difficult as I thought. And then, you know, again, these questions we've been asking today, what would we do? What would we be? And then here were our answers when we did this together. Right away it was, we wanted to go away from church, not meaning that, let me qualify that. You all get it. When I say church, you're thinking about loving, community, welcoming, because you're awesome, right? It's not true everywhere. So when I say church, for a lot of other people, it's not great. It could be traumatizing. It could, for them, mean that, oh, well, I'm not welcome back there. So we said, you know, the people that we want to serve are going to be folks who are predominantly non-religious. We started out with mostly young adults in their 20s and 30s who are LGBT+, who were in our spaces. So we said, you know, we want to be more of a community hub. So yes, we looked at things. We obviously are in a building now that's not a sanctuary building. You'll see a picture of it soon. We don't have a sanctuary. We create sanctuary in our upstairs space, which you'll see in a bit. We talked about things like crosses and other symbols. And we just had very nuanced conversations about how can we set up our space to be inclusive, but also not to water down that we're a Christian community, because we're still Christian, right? So those were deep conversations, and I just qualify that by saying that they're going to look different everywhere you go. You have a beautiful sanctuary, you have stained glass, you have all of the fixings there. By no means am I saying tear it all down, I'm not. Because that's also a mistake. It's also a mistake. You got to figure out what works best for you, because I know people in the queer community, by the way, I've been interchanged, queer community, LGBT+, just in general. I know folks in the queer community who love that, who want this, and that's why they don't come worship with us, right? Because we said, go over there, go to Glenside UCC. I send people over here too, I do, I say people, this is the thing we need to be doing, right? Because there are folks looking for a different experience. There are folks who are more into a liturgy that is more like what you all do here. Also just the aesthetic beauty of this place, they're looking for that. And so don't throw it all away. Mental health support was also the thing that came up. I'm in worship service a few years ago before the pandemic. And like you all, we do prayer time and sharing concerns and stuff. After a while, I knew I was out of my league because we would have up to 15 people want to stand up and share. And it was long.
We do that, we do that.
And because we had people in our space who were not people who had worshipped in maybe 20 years, they just let it all out. They would cry, they would yell, they would say words that you'd go, okay. But that's what they needed to do, right? But we discerned, my colleague Lori, who I need to mention, Lori Stretchenhouse, is a trauma-trained music therapist. And the reason why Lori's been part of this journey so long is because she also helped me understand how music could be therapy and help people deal with the trauma that they're experiencing. So we shifted from looking at like the lectionary and choosing hymns, although we did that still, but we just looked at the songs and said, okay, what are the tones of this song? What does that bring about for people in their responses? And also we listened. Imagine that. When somebody new or somebody who wasn't necessarily religious said, oh, can we sing that again, like now? Then you go, okay, that's what we need to do again and again and again. So Lori's been a huge part of this journey. She counsels a lot. That's really her main job now. Music is still there, it's secondary now, because most of her job is counseling people through trauma-informed care. So we knew mental health support was huge. And then the Pride Festival came, in 2020 when we were all just like, what's happening in the world? We were like, Montgomery County needs a Pride Festival, now, a big one. And so we talked to a bunch of people, we're like, we don't want to do it ourselves, who wants to help? So by no means was it just us. It was a big group of people that we were talking to all over the place and just saying, we talked to people that for 20 years had wanted to do one in Montgomery County. And then we heard those stories and what happened? And then so we pulled resources and we raised as much money as we could. And that's how that festival came to be, with so much blood, sweat, and tears, but also just amazing people, including churches, synagogues, and other faith communities that supported that first Pride Festival now we're on fourth. The queer prom, we get trolled. This is the reality of life these days. But I laugh about it because the trolls we get about queer prom are always the same. It's well, I live in Abington High School is affirming of our kids, and we have a prom and everybody's welcome. We're like, yeah, we know. Abington has an LGBT plus student group. We work with them, they're amazing. That is what we hope for the world. But there are other students in other parts of Montgomery County and other parts of Bucks County. Talk to the Rainbow Room and girls talk about that, where they can't go to their prom and feel like they can be. So all we want to do is just provide that space. So we work with the Rainbow Room, we coordinate with them. They do theirs usually in early May or April at some point, and they've been doing it for a long time. And so they helped us learn how to do it, and we just did our second one 2 weeks ago, and Rainbow Room sent their folks our way, and we sent folks their way, and it's been a really cool partnership. Advocacy and education, I can't tell you how much time I spend now doing DEI training. Now, it's in my background, I used to do it for Integrated Philadelphia, but I never thought that we would be doing every other week, I'm doing something. And it's usually for corporate, for churches, synagogues, nonprofits, even government institutions. It's really insane how much people are asking for stuff. And I think part of it is part of the movement, right, against DEI training and so on. But it's been so much of a blessing to see people, even on the secular side of things, really want to do the right thing. I mean, it's fantastic. And then, I've been talking about collaborations, but I just want to emphasize that. Churches, we're notorious for not working together, right? We gotta stop that. We gotta stop competing. There's no reason to compete. Because what you all do is unique. You're unique. There's no monolith from UCT Church. I love the fact that you exist. I love the fact that I can tell people that maybe close by to you, or maybe wanting more of what you offer to say, come there, please. I love those people. Interfaith and spirituality focus. This happened to me when I served my first UCT congregation in Hawaii. I remember going to that conference, coming from the PCUSA, Presbyterian Church USA, and The first question I got, so the polity there is a bit different than in our conference and in our associations. So in the Hawaii conference in the Oahu Association, my final exam to be ordained was like this, standing before various members of all the churches of the islands. And they could ask me whatever they wanted. I know, right? Pretty scary, right? Except it wasn't that scary. But I'll never forget one woman, I think it was the second question. She raised her hand and very kindly said to me, all that you said sounds great. And no offense, but you're a Haole, you're from the mainland, and I'm just going to ask you, what are you going to do when there's a bond dance? You know, Buddhism is such an important day for us. The congregation that's calling you is majority Taoist and Buddhist, but they're also Christians. How are you going to handle that? And I was like, whoa, that's not a question we get in the Pennsylvania. But that led me, and also the students labor at the University of Hawaii, led me to a deeper understanding of how you can be fully Christian and devout and follow Jesus and be 100% interfaith. And those two things grow each other. So I have been so grateful and blessed to be involved in interfaith work since Hawaii, being a fellow of Interfaith Philly now. This Thursday is the big Dare to Understand Awards, which the Loving Project is sponsoring and part of. It's just an amazing movement and group of people to be part of, and it will bless your congregation. The more that you embrace people of other faith traditions and cooperate with them, the more your congregation will be blessed. We have shifted since the pandemic from a worship-centered format to a spiritual circle format. It was a long process, so this is not something that happened overnight. It wasn't easy. It was super challenging. It still is. We're still figuring it out. So full disclosure. But I went to Toronto to speak at the Parliament of World Religions, and when I was there, I was part of this incredible interfaith group that would gather, and it was a circle. Most of the folks were Muslim, but anyone was welcome. And it was led by women, and I was taken aback by the commitments they had in that circle and how they interacted with each other. And so that, kind of led me to think, maybe that's more of a model for our group. Because worship services weren't working for us, to be honest with you. Because every time we tried to create this liturgy, that we thought was great and work out, we get to a point in it when people they had to share. They had to, talk and express and be in community. And the passing of the peace lasted like 20 minutes. And so at some point you're like, okay, there's a need here that we need to meet, right? And so that's why we shifted to the circle. And it's been, like I said, it's been great. It's also still a learning process. I'm trying to figure out how to best serve that need in the community. Intersectional, meaning that I was talking to somebody earlier about how in new case management, you're looking at the whole person, like all the stuff they bring to the table. And whether it's someone who identifies as part of the African diaspora, who's also bisexual, who also is a Baptist, down the line, like all these intersectional identities are part of who they are. And so we wanted to really lean into that. And since we've done that, we've noticed that diversity is no longer like an issue to be solved. It's just something that is, like all kinds of diversity. Media making was something we didn't expect to do. And again, I bring that up only because I hope that you're open, and I think you are, to things you're not doing now that you've never thought of, ever. That like, this would never happen in our church, because it's just not something we do. I hope you're open to that, because I think it's going to happen. You're going to find a couple things that were not on your radar. For us, making a movie, not on our radar. For us, making training videos for doctors and nurses, not on our radar. But it has become something that's helped us, I think, to spread more of this message we're trying to do to have a wider reach as well. Immigrant justice is still something we're committed to in our community. We started off with a food distribution that started in 2017 in Bucks and Montgomery County, working predominantly around 220 Spanish-speaking community members. And then we've pivoted now. We offered immigration law services for a while, but now we're directly partnering with Immigrant Rights Justice, which is in Doylestown, because they do that 100%. Yeah, that's great, awesome. I love what I see the smile nods. And then we're basically co-partnering to provide mental health services in Spanish to the folks that come and get resources from them, and then maybe need mental health resources too. And then we're very committed to anti-racism, and again, that's part of that intersectionality thing. It's not a program, it just is. It is just who we are, and we embrace that in what we do. All right, so let me just show you some pictures, and then I'll stop talking because I want to make sure I give you a chance to ask any questions. So that's our building. We are currently located at the intersection of York and Horsham Roads. Anybody familiar with that area? Like close to Willow Grove, or like in Harper. On the right, that's Congresswoman Madeline Dean, Representative Dean. She came and visited us, after we moved into the new space, and I was like, okay, Congresswoman Dean, why are you coming to our church today? And she didn't really tell me, and she came and she's like, well, one of my priorities in this part of Montgomery County is to uplift LGBT plus lives. And we want to work with faith communities who are doing that. Like, okay. Yeah, so it was amazing, and she's been so supportive of what we do, and it has led to so many collaborations and partnerships. And then Hatboro, as a community, the mayor, the council, city council, they've been instrumental. That's another thing I want to emphasize. Your local leadership, like talk to them. We are on a first name basis. The police department as well. We don't always agree. That's okay, right? But we're on a first name basis. So like when we host our queer prom, we had hired security, but the police chief and police department of Hatboro also knew we're hosting a queer prom. We're a couple blocks away from you. So we'll do some, ask him to make sure he's okay. Just those kinds of partnerships really matter. That's our queer library, which was, was like a closet or something. And then our group just like MacGyvered everything, painted everything. And we get donations all the time. People are giving us all those banned books. Send them our way. We'll take them. That's right. But no, really, that's really happy. And then that's our upstairs space. Kind of hard to see, but that's where we would have worship. That's where we would have spiritual circles and also community dinners. And then we have forums and town hall meetings. And our LGBT support groups all meet upstairs. And then that's our queer clothing swap. We do those around 3 to 4 times a year. Collect donations, binders, and all sorts of stuff. And you'd be shocked how many people come to those things. There's a real need, especially for younger people who are new to being out and are maybe not feeling safe yet at home or at school. And so they're looking for particular clothing items to help in their transition. And that's what we provide. So let me stop real quick. Any questions, comments? Yeah.
Quick question. People who left the congregation, did any of them come back after realizing that they had made a mistake?
Yes. Yeah. The ones who came back were, in fact, the father who I shared today, he said, my kids are going to get bullied because they go to the gay church. He came back. He came back. Not only did he come back, he was instrumental. He was on the council. And he was one of the main people who really pushed for us to continue with the immigrant justice program. So you see, he was worried about his kids because he didn't have a context for it. And all fairness to him, where his kids went to school, there was bullying.
So my thing was because they left and they felt like hollow, maybe, and missing something, and were willing to grow within the new confines.
That's what I always hope for. I always say not many did, but there's still people that I'm in touch with, and we talk we're on a good basis, like friendship and all of that. They love that we exist. They just, as growing up in that church, used to see one-story building, their kids growing up there, and just, that was it. Once that building was sold, it was less about open and affirming. It was really about that, right? They just couldn't come back to this. So. Good question, thank you. Yeah.
I love the idea of collaborating between the churches because it is an alien concept. And we want to build our relationships with other churches and with definitely love and action, even by sharing space. And, what do you think the best form of communication is to get those collaborations together among all the different churches?
Thank you again. Awesome question. Excuse me. So first of all, we're developing a grassroots, open and affirming group of churches, all denominations. So we've got Lutherans, Baptists, Methodists. Come on, Methodists, let's go. Let's get on the board. Right. Okay. Yeah, I got all these phone calls, like a month ago. What do I do now? What do I do now? I'm like, you just do. You don't have to worry anymore, right? No. Yeah. So what we do is we have an email list, and I already have you all on that list, and then we're just gonna gather as we need to in terms of so since you're here in Fort Washington, we're not that far from you. There are other congregations around us that are also part of that network. It's just to say, okay, who's close by and who can offer this kind of space for this thing. So low-lying fruit. We started a partnership with Zwingli UCC in Saddleton about 1.5 years ago. They host our activity events, our LGBT plus activity events. And that's really going well. Because that part of Montgomery County had more of a Saddleton to Montgomery County? Yeah, okay, always messed up. Bucksmont always screwed with my mind. I'm a Midwesterner, so we don't have that. You go to the grocery store, you drive 30 miles from your home. So anyway, that's my Iowa coming out. So, what I would say is you have great spaces here. You could absolutely host an activity. You could do a pride picnic, or a lot of churches, synagogues, and so on are doing a mini pride where just they'll have a worship service where it's like you all do celebratory, and then afterwards you welcome the community, you have some food, maybe some music, some games, open with families, and it's a pride picnic. Those are really great. We go to probably 3 or 4 a year, but definitely hosting PFLAG, hosting if you know my brain just stopped for a second. Every school has, not every school, but they have the student groups that are the Gay Straight Alliance groups. Yeah, GSAs. So also coordinate with them. All these people are looking for spaces. For real. That's what we found out. Once we got our stuff together and have our building in a usable condition, well, we're full time now. We never were. So let's just be frank. We weren't. It was Sundays and pretty much it. Now it's Monday through Sunday. And we've even got demands that we can't leave now. So I would highly encourage you to look at your space and be what can we host here? You probably already host lots of things, but if you want to host something specifically to that, that's what I would suggest. Great question.
Our library is just beginning, if you can see it over in the corner.
That's how you start.
And it is. We'll take any titles that you can give us that should be included in our section.
Oh, actually, thank you for saying that, because yes, we do have that. We have an overflow right now. And the people who categorize everything, I'm not that methodical, I don't know how they do it, but they're amazing, our volunteers. They're saying to me all the time, we gotta donate these books somewhere else. So awesome, thank you. They're coming from me, that's my point. Yeah.
If you have an overflow of kids' books, we volunteer for beds for kids. They include 3 age-appropriate books for each kid in the household when they're delivering beds. They take those donations.
Great, thank you.
For kids' books.
Good to know too, because we didn't really know this too. We're getting it out of it. Thank you. Quick story about this. I talked about media, and this was where it started for us. Is it was random. Jennifer, there in the right corner, member of our congregation, trans woman, was a longtime teacher in elementary school, lost her job because she was trans, then spiraled into, deep depression. Amazing person, human being. She would love that I'm talking about her today. She's still doing great stuff everywhere. Somehow, somewhere, Liz Plank, who kind of works for MSNBC now, but was working for Vox Media at the time, was looking for stories about identity and female identities in particular, but also trans identity. And she reached out and said, "Hi, I'm Liz Plank." I'm like, "I know who you are. I really do know who you are." And I'd like to come and interview Jen and interview you, if that's okay. And I'm like, "Well, I'll talk to Jennifer about it." And so she brought her film crew from New York. And the whole purpose of that was to tell Jen's story. And then Jen told the story of finding love in action and what that meant to her. It's still available if you go on YouTube and Google Divided States of Women. You can watch it short, it's like 4 or 5 minutes. But that kind of like put us on the map. Because after that video was up, people started to realize, okay, I drive past this place, it's a building, it's a church, you know. But then they see the video and they go, wait, so a trans woman is a leader there on the council and has this story, maybe I can see myself there. And then they started coming. And there were a lot of folks like Jen who just were looking for a place to belong. So that really mattered, and I'll never forget when Liz Plank was saying that the UCT is fading America, and I'm like, can we get that somehow in our national study? Right? And then the other media project that you're going to see right now is, because I want to value your time. What time do we want to close this? Like soon?
How long is the video?
10 minutes.
Fine.
Okay, cool. All right, so this is what you're going to see. Back in 2021, one of my church members, Kai, who lives in the Grand Rapids area of Montgomery County, came to me and said, you know, as a trans person who's out now, I'm past the age of 57, going on 60. I got to drive to the zoning center to get what I need. I can't get anything in Montgomery County. And I've been talking to my doctors at Abington Hospital about it, and I've got one doctor who's been great. His name is Dr. Jimmy Ruiz. He's the head of OBGYN. He used to be the head of the zoning center. He happens to identify as gay. And Dr. Ruiz is interested in talking to us about how we can help Abington Hospital get better and how they serve trans and non-binary patients. And I was like, great, let's start the conversation. So we did. And then eventually we met the head of the whole family medicine at Abington, Dr. John Huskin. And he said to us, why not we work together to host a healthcare symposium? And you bring your folks and we'll do a panel. We'll bring doctors from Mainline Health, Jefferson Health, Penn Medicine, wherever. We'll host it at Abington. And Madeline Dean said, I'd like to go to that. Okay. So we did that. And that launched this movement to create a documentary film to tell a story about trans and non-binary folks who found love in action, but then what their experiences were in healthcare, and then how that movement led them to start to train doctors, nurses, and now med students. So we train around 400 University of Drexel College of Medicine students every year. We're part of their curriculum now officially. We also do training at the University of Arts and Sciences, and we've done a variety of nursing schools like Wayne University and so on. We have a cohort of about 20 trans and non-binary individuals that we built over the last 3 years or so, and they just do straight talk, like to tell you here's what you need to know. Intake forms, nitty gritty, all of that. And Abington Hospital has already made very distinct changes to reflect that in a matter of months. And so, yeah, let me show you the movie. So, this, by the way, I gotta tell you, there's no air conditioning, but it does feel okay in here. It's
Doing okay.
Yeah.
Come back in July.
Well, right. True.
Should not have said it.
Yeah.
Between
Yeah, that was my fault. That was really my fault.
It took me a long time before I got up the guts to even come here. I'm 60 years old right now, and I only came out when I was 57. I've known it about myself all my life, but having a very deep religious background, I did not feel comfortable, acknowledging this about myself.
When I finally came to the conclusion and I realized who I am as a human being, I'm at a crossroads in my life. That's a scary moment. The world's not very forgiving.
I didn't come out until I was 38 years old because I was so freaking terrified. And at that point, I'm like scared to even leave the house or the car, waiting to go into an appointment. And things shouldn't be like that. People wouldn't be dying because they're so terrified that they'll be outed in their town, that they would rather just die of whatever issues that they have.
I started to do some research in my local area. Okay, well, who's a doctor that I can see that can help me? And here in the suburbs, there's nothing.
Just being a patient and going to a doctor is absolutely terrifying. I don't want to have to out myself every time. And I want to be respected. We deserve that.
After about a year of therapy, I realized, okay, I gotta go meet some people who are like me. And I came to SAGA. That's where I met my first trans person. SAGA is the Sexuality and Gender Acceptance Community Center. It's one of the most welcoming, open groups that I've ever experienced. I really feel like we save lives.
In 2017, I met Josh Blakesley and just happened to get into talking with him about starting some sort of community organization for LGBT plus folks in Montgomery County, which is where I'm from. He basically said, that sounds awesome. We should do that.
We wanted to be a hub in the community where people who may have been marginalized could come together in the same space and have a community that they find in solidarity with each other. Some of our leaders just shared, their horrific experiences, to be frank, here in the suburbs. They're looking for doctors who were safe. And as we talked about it, we said, why not we start talking to doctors?
We found that people downright just avoid basic care, but also critical care for fear of being mistreated or discriminated against.
The work that the Welcome Project is doing now involves bringing together cohorts of trans, non-binary, and intersex individuals, and also bringing together cohorts of doctors to address this problem.
Trans and intersex people experience a ton of violence from medical providers, and then the onus is on them to teach providers how to give them care. And it's a big reason why trans people don't go to the doctor.
We're embarrassed. We don't want to tell anybody. What's the first thing we do? We go on the internet. I've seen a lot of people who are faced with this kind of try to figure it out on their own and do it on their own. And I think that's dangerous because there's not enough education.
We started with members of SAGA Community Center and their doctors who they felt safe with. And then Dr. Jimmy Ruiz reached out to us and said, what if we fashion our own training program that our LGBT plus cohort creates? And then we work with doctors to make it something also effective in their context.
Learning on the part of a clinician does not end with the residency training. It's lifelong. There's a lot of garbage out there. There's a lot of opinions out there. The best part of this collaboration is resources are being generated by an organization that's committed to the community's best interests.
Delighted to be with you tonight, to talk about something that really many of you have brought to my attention, the need for greater understanding, awareness about trans and non-binary healthcare.
Back in June, there was a panel discussion hosted here at Jefferson Abington to share our experiences from both sides.
We share a lot of medical stories, and some of them break your heart. There's no reason why in Montgomery County, Pennsylvania, in the Abington system or any of the hospital systems, that we can't do better.
Walking into a waiting room, you have to announce your name. If you haven't changed your name, your legal name, then you've got to say, with a beard, my name is Susan. Then when they call you, they're going to call you sitting in there with a beard, Susan. You can imagine how that makes you feel. It's horrible.
I have horror stories, and specifically ER horror stories of being asked things like, oh, are you going to get the surgery? And I'm like, I am here because I have a rash, and now you're asking me this thing that's very invasive about my body, and I don't know you. What is, quote, the surgery you're referring to?
I went to a dentist actually recently, and I had a toothache, but then the conversation turned into, well, how do you identify? What do you mean your pronouns are they, them? I'm already a black person. I'm a fat person. I have this other thing that's now on top of it. You're my dentist. What does this have to do with that? What kind of care am I trying to get? Fix my tooth.
You could just come out and use your last name, and they refuse to, and they want to out you in the middle of the office, causing a situation where you have to walk out with people that are homophobic or transphobic and following you out to your car in the parking lot. I've had that happen. Doctors not knowing the proper amount of testosterone that I should be on, just handing me needles and taking them home and being like, here, figure it out. I was only on T for 1 week and I had a lump in my throat that was actually cancerous. My primary care physician was convinced that I had grown an Adam's apple and thought that it was because of testosterone and wanted to take me off of it because they were so uneducated about what the hormone what it even does. Like, it's insane, where you should be terrified to go to your own primary care provider.
I think that we had, when I was in medical school 3 or 4 years ago, an hour or two focused on this conversation, and that's it. We have to find a way to educate people to be better for patients.
The hallmark of the patient-physician relationship, that you are approaching them as an individual. Sometimes that gets lost in the structure in which we are expected to practice.
This is an issue that a huge cohort of students are interested in. And it wasn't 5 years ago. It is a slow evolution. People want feedback. And I do think when we do the wrong thing, we want to get better.
We already are lining up so many medical offices and doctors who actually want us to be a part of this. That already is giving me chills. One, we're helping, our panelists actually find closure by giving back. And also just getting doctors and nurses talking to us after, the competency trainings we've been having. Like, oh, I never knew that. Oh, I'm questioning myself. Oh, I never knew I could have pronouns. Just we're opening doors.
We hope to standardize the training so that healthcare practitioners all across the country can get this training and become competent.
I was lucky. I was sitting in the chair with my hoodie on. She walks in, and they're calling me by my chosen name. It looks like everything should be fine today. Are you okay with getting the hormones? I said, yeah. I just want to be curled up in this little ball. She goes, okay. Well, my last question is, how did you plan to celebrate today? It was the first time anyone really acknowledged me for who I really was. I took that as an obvious sign. I must be in the right place, right time. I hope they start to incorporate this kind of awareness in schooling.
We have some amazingly courageous people who are willing to be asked questions that are difficult questions, that doctors and nurses and other medical professionals just want to know, and they're afraid to ask.
My hope remains that the impact will be that no matter what an individual's gender identity may be, that they are comfortable going to a provider.
I want all people to connect with gender in a more interesting and deconstructed way, because I think then everyone gets freer.
I so want things to be easier for younger trans people. I don't want them to wait until they're 57, and I want to make it as easy as possible for them.
I guess the last message I would want to give is just meet me, meet me as a person. I'm a person, and I think we'll get along just fine.
Like I said, I know you've been here a long time, so I'll cease talking. I just wanted to share that we are in phase 2 of this project, so we have begun what's called the storyboard phase of the next film. We created a professional training video that we only use for doctors and med students. But if any of you would like to see that, just let me know. I will give you the credit. Exclusive. I know, but we're creating one of those videos now too, based on the things that medical students in the last 3 years have told us that they don't know what to do. So it sounds like a no-brainer, oh gee, you just kind of ask people, how would you like to, but it doesn't happen, we don't talk to each other. So once again, it's a collaboration. I never would have expected something like this to happen, but this happened from folks in our church that literally just said, can we do something about this? And because we had so many trans and non-binary folk who were very passionate about it, and also willing to share their story and be out to tell that story, which is a lot of courage. That's how that happened. And so it's really, tiny little congregation, and now we're talking to these, medical folks. So anyway, thank you for being here, putting up with me all this time. I did leave some more resources with Pastor Mark. I left some Flexible Pride posters. It's easy though, it's flexmorepride.com if you don't already know that. I know you won't. And then I left some new flyers that we just made for SAGA's programs. Also, our mental health program in Spanish and English, both sides, in case you have any folks who are looking for pro bono or low-cost therapy. And feel free to reach out if you have any questions about that. And I'll just also say this, I look forward to hearing from you, because I know Mark lives, and we're going to get together. But no, also just, I look forward to developing a partnership with you all, because I think there's some really great stuff we can do. I know that my congregation just loves it when I talk about these things, because they're like, oh great, let's do it, let's do more. So we're always up for that. I would also put this out there, this is real. Next year, if any of you want to join the Pride Planning Committee, just reach out. Like, it's a volunteer committee. And
Can I reach out now?
yes. Boom.
No.
The meetings are not that bad. And they're on
That's true around St. Paul, too.
Define not that bad. What I mean is, of course, you go a lot of meetings. It's it's not that bad. And it's always on Zoom, and it's a lot of fun too. And it's not even too late. So if any of you who were planning to come or would like to come and would like to even volunteer for an hour or however time you can, please reach out, because we love to have more volunteers. We've got all kinds of folks from different corporate entities and so on, but we love to have churches come out and volunteer. And it's fun volunteering. It's not like terrible stuff like decorating balloon arches and stuff. So, and funnels, machines. And, we may have a horse, a rainbow horse this year, a therapy horse. I know, yeah.
I broke with horses actually.
Oh.
I had a white horse and we painted him rainbow.
Well, that's what this is going to be.
She was a therapy horse,
Yeah.
basically.
That's awesome. This is the first time we've ever done that.
Can there be a unicorn?
I mean, that's what I was hoping. And I think it's going to happen by the end of the festival, right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I wanted to share a story.
Sure.
Okay. When my daughter was going to school, she'd bring all her friends home. And so that's when I first met face-to-face people who were in gay relationships. I had mohawks in my living room, kids with jeans held together with safety pins and whatever. So I got to see a whole host of people. And her instruction when she came into the house was, everybody gets a hug from mom first. To get in the house, you have to hug mom. So she's living in California with her wife. And she had this story to tell, and she knows I'm sharing it. And she says, as June approaches, this was posted on Facebook, as June approaches and all the corporations get their rainbows on for exactly 1 month of advertising, I have a true story. I'm on my way to the doctor's office last week. I hop in the elevator with another person. Of course I'm wearing a bandana. It's an inclusive pride flag. It has all the colors. The person says to me, I like your headband. And I say, it's my big gay headband. It's the gayest headband I own. Then the person says, a bit timidly, I'm getting my first shots of testosterone today. Both my arms fly up in excitement and my mouth flies. Yes, both of us said. The person also does the same thing and is visibly excited. It's time to get out of the elevator. We both get out. As we part ways, I ask, do you know how to inject? My friend is a nurse. And they say, that's what I'm here for to learn. They have boxes and a CVS bag. I tell them, you've got this. Keep a little notebook. Congratulations. So when folks ask, why do you always have to wear a rainbow? The answer is the same. I don't wear it for me. I wear it so other people know they're not alone, to see their reflection out in the world, to know that even if it sucks right now, other folks have made it and they will too.
Amen. That's it. Every month is Pride Month. It is. It is. Well, thank you all for having me. Like I said, this is like, you can tell that I talk way too much, I get too excited, but this is like one of my favorite things to do. So I look forward to having more of these conversations with you. Please reach out. I really mean it when I say that. I know some people say, yeah, right, whatever. No, really, I will respond. We will respond. So please reach out. If you ever have any questions, like I've said this to Pastor Mark too, but if you ever want to have deeper conversations about open and affirming identity, some of the pitfalls, some of the things we learned along the way in the last 13 years or so, we love to tell stories, so please ask questions. We're not afraid to talk about that. I want you to know about the struggles. I want you to know about the challenges, because they go with all the success and everything else, right? So it's culture change, it's systems change, it's a big deal, and you're part of that. So thank you for that. I am those children here today, and the children that I know you have more children here, they are getting something. And that's what, when we started Buckstone Pride, we were like, we're doing it on a Sunday. And some people were like, why are you doing it on a Sunday? We've got church on Sunday. I'm like, that's why. Because we want it to be church. We want kids to grow up seeing trans people visibly, celebrating with them, being comfortable with this being, this is what life is. This is like what my church does. This is what my synagogue does. This is normal. And I love it too, because our Pride is often known for being the one that folks who have never been to Pride come to. Because we try to create that kind of a space so that it's not too overwhelming. I love Philly Pride, but again, I have the privilege to say that, and I live in the city, and I've been many, many times, and I know people today that I'll be hugging and seeing today, but other people, that's a crazy thing. That's like intense, claustrophobic, and if you're not out or you're just recently out, it's scary, right? It's the first time you said, here I am, this is me. So I appreciate all the prides, and that's the other thing I'll say to you. Go to as many as you can. PA's got more prides now than ever before. It's wonderful. We're not competing. We have a group that meets every year, and we go through it. Okay, New Hope Pride, what are you looking at dates? Okay, Millstone Pride. Okay, and we just kind of coordinate. It's just amazing. And churches, we should do that. We should be like, all right, what prides are in all of our UCC regions? Let's go together. You know, that's what I'm doing. So maybe that's something we can do too. You know, food for thought. Like there are other prides we could go together as a congregation, just enjoy. You know, table together. Why not? So anyway, all right, enough talking. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you so much, Josh. Thank you again to Carol, to Jack, who had a lot to do with the setup here, the food, to all of you for staying, for the offerings, to SAGA and the Welcome Project, of course, to Pastor Josh.
Thank you.
And I think we are done. The one thing I would ask for you all is if you can stack these chairs back over there. Most of this stuff actually comes with us to the state park in a couple weeks, so we don't need to move any of the speakers or that stuff. But if the chairs could get stacked up. Thank you.
You know, it's so cool you go to that park, because when I